welcome back. And, well, a big announcement coming out of the EPA administration with Administrator Lee Zeldin. And I'm very honored to have back with us today Gregory Wrightstone. He's a geologist, executive director of the CO₂ Coalition, expert reviewer for the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change, and best-selling author of Inconvenient Facts. His latest book is entitled A Very Convenient Warming: How Modest Warming and More CO₂ Are Benefiting Humanity. And there's a picture of the cover of the book. He has one website, convenientwarming.com, and that will also get you information on the book, convenientwarming.com. Gregory, good to see you again. How are you, friend?
Oh, really good. It's a lot of good news coming out of the last 6 months, and more coming today from what we hear.
Yeah.
In 2 hours or so, Lee Zeldin will be announcing in Indianapolis a repeal of what was called the Endangerment Finding. And this is, your listeners may not be aware of that name, but they've used this finding. This was an EPA ruling that came out under the Obama Environmental Protection Agency in 2009 that determined, they determined that carbon dioxide, CO₂, is a pollutant. And because it's a pollutant, they found that they've used that to regulate all sorts of things from, well, if you just look around, if your listeners or viewers are sitting in their home, just look around. Just about anything that uses electricity has now been made more expensive with fewer choices than what you had before. So you're only allowed to buy a ceiling fan, believe it or not, if the a government-approved ceiling fan, government-approved dishwasher, shower head, dishwasher, washer and dryer, you name it. They were trying to regulate that you could only buy electric vehicles, all because of this EPA ruling in 2009 called the Endangerment Finding. And that's hopefully going away this afternoon in about 2 hours.
Okay, so Administrator Zeldin is expected to make that announcement to roll it back. This is a big deal. I mean, this is a big deal. Does he have I guess he has the authority to just eliminate it, correct?
Well, it's not going to be just immediately eliminated. There's, from what we understand, there will be a 45-day comment period, and after that 45 days, they'll do what the others didn't do, is they'll consider the comments. And the CO₂ Coalition, where I'm executive director, we're drafting a science-based comment to support this. One of the things that's interesting too, you could say, well, what happens in 3.5 years, and there's a President Gavin Newsom in charge? Can't he just get it back? No, he can't. And that's because two important rulings from the Supreme Court in 2024 said that you must consider, when you're making important rules like this, each agency must consider all of the available important data. And EPA, when they made this ruling, ignored all of the science that went against the decision that CO₂ is a pollutant. What they said was, if you don't consider all of the science, the wording they used was the ruling is arbitrary and capricious, those two words. And by definition, if they were arbitrary and capricious, did not consider all of the data, all of the science, then it was an illegal ruling. So that's all changed. It was almost a year ago when those two Supreme Court decisions came down. So things are a little bit different now. It's not going to be as easy to get this back. And so in 45 days of comments, it would come in. They'll be able to basically repeal this.
Okay, boy, this opens up a lot. In the meantime, it looks like the legacy media is already panicking and trying to interrupt this, obviously. Do you think it's strictly emotional, but do you think they'll have an impact on the 45 days?
No. No, do you think Trump's going to back down? Do you think Lee Zeldin's going to back down? No, they've listed, from what I understand, we're going to know more at the end in 2 hours or so. We won't be able to look at the exact ruling, but from what I've heard, it'll be a 5-day comment period. Now, it will go into litigation, I'm sure. It will be, it hopefully, it would go the whole way to the Supreme Court, and we'll be providing, again, the CO₂ Coalition is the preeminent scientific organization in the world that's pushing back against this climate crazy nonsense, this push for net zero, this demonization of what we call the miracle molecule, CO₂. They call it the demon molecule. In fact, our unofficial motto here is we love CO₂ and so should you, because of the many benefits that are accruing to humanity and ecosystems that are thriving because of more CO₂. We should celebrate that, not demonize it.
How did the earlier EPA was allowed to ignore obvious science about CO₂ and demonize it?
Well, it was easy. It was political science, not true science. They just ignored. There's plenty and we provide, a lot of it's come from us. Plenty of information out there, scientific data, uh, proving that increasing carbon dioxide is hugely beneficial to both ecosystems and to humanity. The greatest benefit we have from increasing CO₂, just look out your window, look at the crops, take a look at Oregon's or America's crop production. It's breaking records year after year after year. And that's because of it's a combination of modest warming. And you'll say, what? I thought higher temperatures were bad for crops. No, no, no. They're hugely beneficial. And that's because we're in a warming trend. That means that warming trends, we have longer growing seasons. And we see that in the continental United States, contiguous states in the United States, growing season since 1900 has increased by more than 2 weeks. That's a really good thing for agriculture. And then that's turbocharged by increasing carbon dioxide fertilization effect. That, boy, if you look just about every single crop you look at, from the coldest nations to the warmest, hottest nations like India, are breaking crop growth records year after year after year. Famine is in retreat, not in advance. Crop production is greatly outpacing population growth. That's a good thing, I'd say, wouldn't you? That's a really, really good thing.
Yeah. Is this current warming trend we're in, is this cyclical?
Yes, it is. And it will get colder at some point in the future, hopefully not too soon. And the hope that I have is we're nearing the end. We have these interglacial periods, which usually last 10, 11, 12,000 years. Well, we're about 11,000 years into ours. And so we have usually 85, 90,000 years of glacial advance, where of course, most of Canada and the northern United States were under hundreds and thousands of feet of ice during those times. This interglacial warming trend started warming about 15 or 18,000 years ago, but really the glacial advance ended again like about 8, 11 or 12,000 years ago. And so if the next glacial advance comes, that's going to be just horrific. It's going to be catastrophic. It'll be it's just going to be really bad. And if it gets cold but doesn't go into a glacial advance, we've seen that occur time over the last 4 or 5 thousand years. These things occur about every 1,000 years or so. But the benefits are the hot, warmer periods, warmer than today, were just hugely beneficial for humanity. Again, crops were bountiful. You could feed if you were emperor in a warming period, you could feed your subjects. Everybody was fat and happy, and you could go live your life as emperor and not worry. But if you were an emperor, again, back during the Roman warm period or the Minoan warm period, and it started getting cold, what we saw every time it started getting cold, we saw crop failure, famine, pestilence, and mass depopulation. You couldn't feed your subjects, and they'd be coming after you with the pitchforks. And that's what happened. We saw when it started getting cold, we saw societal collapse, great empires declined, and it's just completely opposite of what we're being told. We're being told fear the heat. It's going to get too hot. It's going to be awful. But that's not what history tells us. History tells us that we should welcome the warmth and fear the cold. And again, it's just opposite of what we're being told, isn't it?
Yeah, it certainly is. How do you, and what's your take on, during this warming trend, we've also have seen excessive flooding. What's your take on that?
I have not seen that. You might think that by looking at the media. For example, the Texas floods. If you look back from a few weeks ago there in Texas, it was the flood that we witnessed there. There were three other floods dating back to the early 1900s. It was bad. It was unusual and rare, but there were two other floods that were bigger than the one we had. And so they're trying to relate this to climate change. And in fact, if you look at we took a look at the flash floods in Texas. We take a look at the data instead of being driven by the media. The data shows that actually flash floods, they're erratic, but they've been actually in slight decline in Texas. And so you look at the data, you'd think that if you listen to the data, you'd think hurricanes are increasing. They're not. If you look at the data and you're in Oregon, you might think fires are increasing, maybe in some areas that are driven by bad forest practices. But globally, fires and across most of the United States have declined significantly over the last 80 or 90 years. They just have, both in area burned and number. You can get that the National Interagency Fire Service. And we just see a lot of these things are being told. People accept them as fact, and we look at the actual data to find out what's the truth about that.
Do you expect somewhat of a, if I can use the term, renaissance in science as it relates to CO2? I mean, without it, we're dead, and yet they've demonized it. I mean, when is the science community going to be honest?
It's turning around now. It is I have been an optimist for many years. I've been saying for many years that the truth will win out because we have the truth on our side. We just do. We have the facts, the data, the science to back up what we're saying. And what we're saying is there is no climate crisis. Warming is fairly good, not terrible. But if we look at, again, I think people are now waking up to this fact. The problem we've had is that we've been silenced. Me and my colleagues at the CO₂ Coalition tell a very compelling story that's fact-based. And when people hear this, their eyes get wide and they go, "What? I didn't know that." And it's completely contrary to what they've been told for years and years and years. They hear it every day, every week, every month, and it's wrong. And so once people know and exposed to the truth that they've been lied to, I think it helped the COVID era and what we learned about COVID and the science that people were pushing. They learned during the COVID era that sometimes the experts can be wrong and often quite wrong. And sometimes the experts and the scientists might have financial benefit to lie about things.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you, if we could go, I could go sit here with you for 3 hours going through all the data, just fact after fact after fact. And it's more political science than it is science.
Okay, let me take a quick break. The website's convenientwarming.com. The book is entitled A Very Convenient Warming, How Modest Warming and More CO2 Are Benefiting Humanity. And there's the picture of the cover of the book. Check it out, Gregory Wrightstone, online, and then check out the website, convenientwarming.com. We'll be right back. Welcome Welcome back. Very timely, and we're always honored when we have time to sit down with Gregory Wrightstone. He's a geologist, executive director of the CO₂ Coalition. And you got to check out his book, A Very Convenient Warming, How Modest Warming and More CO₂ Are Benefiting Humanity. There's a picture of the cover of the book, and it has a website, convenientwarming.com. Gregory, earlier you mentioned that, we're in this warming or warmer cycle. Where are we in that cycle?
Well, we're again in the big picture, we got these 11,000 or so year interglacial warm periods.
Mm-hmm.
Thankfully, we're in that. But within this, it's called the Holocene period. That's about 10 or 11,000 years of warming. But I look back over the last several thousand years back to the first great civilizations, the first great warming. And there have been three other warm periods that were similar to what we have today, but warmer. And that started with the Minoan warm period. It was called the Bronze Age. Great things, great empires rose up, civilizations arose. All the great first civilizations, the Babylonians, the Assyrians, the Hittites, the Harappan Empire in the Indus River Valley, the ancient Egyptian civilization, all of these were in a really warm period of time. For example, they were growing a crop called millet in Scandinavia, which can only be grown in subtropical or tropical areas today. So we know, just looking at those historical records, it was a lot warmer than it is today. And life was good, huge. Everyone benefited. And then it started getting cold. And that all of those empires within a short of a period as 50 or 100 years collapsed because it got cold and the crops failed. And again, we talked about them coming for you with pitchforks if you couldn't feed your subjects. Well, and that's what happened. It was called the Late Bronze Age collapse. And again, we just see each historical, and there's about 1,000 years of separation. The last great warming period was the medieval warm period that lasted from about 850 AD to 1250 AD, and that was the time of the great medieval societies, the high Middle Ages, and then it got cold again. And again, every time it got cold, bad things happened, and we saw it was called the Little Ice Age, and we had glaciers extending in Europe down through France. The Alsace-Lorraine region of France some of the cities there were overrun by glaciers and were destroyed. It was a very bad cold time, and again, I like using historical records.
Yeah.
When I tell you this, for example, Martha Washington, you're going, what's Martha Washington have to do with this? But back at Mount Vernon, she liked ice in her drinks in the summer, and George built an insulated ice house for her, and he would have his slaves and indentured servants go down to the Potomac River, and they would cut every winter they cut the thick ice into big blocks, haul it up, put it in the ice house, and Martha was happy having ice in her drinks in June. But it doesn't. The Potomac doesn't freeze like that anymore. Hasn't for many decades. Only once in a while does it freeze over, and never to the extent that what they had. So again, we use historical records like that, and you go, oh yeah, it was a lot colder back then, and it was. Good. And so thankfully it's warmer. But again, history. Al Gore, Greta Thunberg, and the others would call me a science denier because no, I'm not. I'm a scientist. I would call them history deniers because they're denying what history tells us. They should go back and look at the history books to find out that they're wrong.
Speaking of books, don't you have you're about ready to hold up there? Don't you have a children's version of this?
Well, it's not a version of this, but
okay.
it's my first children's book. It's called Chloe the Clownfish Sleeps Well. It's the first of our Sleep Well series, and it tells the story of Chloe the clownfish that lives on the Great Barrier Reef, and of course, our children are being taught these lurid, fear-mongering stories about, don't have children. You're not going to live a long life because of climate change, and you're emitting CO₂. And so we're able to use that wonderfully illustrated book with our Brazilian artist Tiago Hellinger da Silva from Brazil, and we were able to tell the truth about what's actually happening on the Great Barrier Reef and coral reefs around the world.
I want to come to the other subject of CO2, and that is overall pollution. It seems to me that we have made great strides in cleaning up our airs. Earlier in my early life, I was a corporate pilot, and I would fly over LA Basin, the LA Basin, in the middle of the day without a cloud in the sky, but I'd have to file an IFR flight plan because the pollution was so bad that I had to fly on instruments in order to get into the airport that I was going on. Today you can fly over that and see the ground. We've made some great strides, but yet we're being punished continually for this. What's your take?
Well, we are, and if I'll encourage anyone watching this, just two words: search for EPA pollution, and that will take you to the EPA's chart of, I think it goes back to 1980, in terms of it lists parts per million, and a lot of these were parts per billion of the 7 major pollutants. CO2 is not one of them, by the way, and you'll see that we saw great strides in decreasing pollution going back. Really, the greatest improvements occurred in the 80s and 90s, and then our air got cleaner and cleaner and cleaner. And so it's still declining, but just when it gets so clean and there's so few pollutants left of that, whatever it is, SOx, NOx, whatever it might be, particulates, once it's very difficult to have any significant change downward. And it's our air and water today are cleaner than they likely have been since probably the beginning of the Industrial Revolution for many hundreds of years. And some of these are natural pollutants that have always been here. You could have arrived here 5,000 years ago, and you'd find that there was a little bit of arsenic or lead or some very tiny amounts, but it's in the streams. It dissolves out of the rocks, but it's in such small amounts that it's not harmful.
You mentioned the fear-based climate message, which has targeted young people. It's even been propagated through, obviously, the media. But it also seems to have hit a wall. It appears now this agenda has been exposed. Darvo and other places where these globalists meet and they fly in with their big jets, the hypocrisy of all of that. But the point being is, it appears now more and more people are waking up to the fact that we've been bullied on this issue. Are we winning?
Oh, we're winning big time. Or as maybe Trump would say, we're winning bigly, and we should be happy for that. Yeah, we are winning this war finally. It's been quite a battle, and over the last several decades, we've been facing people like me and my colleagues at the CO2 Coalition. Our chairman's Dr. William Happer, Princeton emeritus professor of physics. He's been fighting this. We've been facing fierce headwinds, but now, just with the election of Trump, there's a new sheriff in town. He's got a whole bunch of new deputies like Lee Zeldin and Chris Wright, Doug Burgum, and Sean Duffy that he's put in the right place that are pushing back against this climate nonsense. And finally, scientists like us are finally getting a voice. That we're getting out there, and I've always said, just if we are allowed to speak and get our message out there, then it's game over for the climate industrial complex. And I tell you, we're doing something here at the CO2 Coalition. We've created a couple of 60-second television ads that I'm hoping to have start airing nationwide, promoting the truth about climate change. And we'll see if we can get it on. I'd like to see that on MSNBC, CNN. If you tune into the Masters or one of the football programs this fall, maybe you'll see one of our ads. It will, if we can get that up and running, heads will be exploding because we'll be presenting the actual facts and going around the media by talking directly to millions of people in their homes.
Well, maybe come up with a couple million, drop in the middle of the Super Bowl, and
there you go.
Everybody watches the Super Bowl not for the game, but for the ads.
Yeah.
If they'll sell you the time. If they sell you the time. Maybe they won't sell you the time. You never know.
I'm going to find out. We're going to find out because we're bold. We're confronting the science and the scientific societies that have been pushing this false narrative. We just sent a letter to the Pontifical Academy of Science in the Vatican, Vatican City. There are 58 representatives. We haven't heard anything back from them. We're looking at all 18 of the major scientific societies in the United States, including the American Association for the Advancement of Science. They're pushing back against us hard. We're coming after them, though. We want the science. We're promoting the scientific method, and what they're promoting is what's called consensus science. Well, there's a consensus of scientists that say that increasing CO2 is leading to catastrophe, and it's that consensus is not science, and science is not consensus.
All right, quickly, what do you expect from EPA today? Does it let our listeners know what, one more time, what Lee Zeldin's about to announce?
A repeal of the endangerment finding that found that carbon dioxide is a pollutant. We understand this announcement will be dealing solely with vehicles, cars, trucks, which is still a good thing, and we'll praise that. It's the first step. This might be the beginning of the process to roll everything back. It might be a long process right now, but it's a huge step forward. Lee Zeldin and others there in the Trump administration, I understand he's going to be announcing this with Chris Wright from the Department of Energy. So kudos to Chris, kudos to Lee Zeldin for the bravery to push this forward. Don't look back. We've got your back, and we will provide the science, the facts, and the data to support what they're doing.
All right, this is all coming out within the next couple of hours here. You'll be looking for it in the news. In the meantime, check out Gregory's book, A Very Convenient Warming, How Modest Warming and More CO2 Are Benefiting Humanity. And check out the website, convenientwarming.com. There's a picture of the cover of the book. There's a picture of the landing page. Gregory, thank you for your time. You're fascinating, and stay in the fight, buddy. We need you.
Thank you.
Talk to you soon.
Go get them.
All right, thank you.